Traveling through the first year of Zhonghe in the Northern Song Dynasty, he was a poor scholar in Qinghe County, Shandong Province. His surname was Wang, and his neighbor was Wu Dalang. Keywords of the novel. My surname is Wang, my neighbor Wu Dalang has no pop-ups. My surname is Wang, my neighbor Wu Dalang. Download the complete TXT collection, My Surname is Wang, My Neighbor Wu Dalang. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. My Lover Pan Jinlian. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. My lover Pan Jinlian Wang Lin felt like someone was kicking him. Hey, straight mother thief, don't sleep. He turned his head away and drowsily adjusted his sleeping position from supine to a more comfortable side lie, resting on one arm and still indulging in heavy sleep. The buttocks were in excruciating pain, and it was obvious that someone had kicked them hard. He suddenly opened his eyes and saw a pitch-black scene before him. He could only vaguely see a pointed face swaying, with 1 or 2 drops of saliva dripping onto his face. Who? Wang Lin was startled and instinctively sat up, gasping for air. What kind of place is this? A strong odor mixed with various decaying odors rushed towards him, almost not suffocating him. He immediately held his breath and quickly reached his waist with his right hand, but only touched the hard ilium. Where's the gun? As his eyes adapted to the dim environment and his vision gradually brightened, he finally saw the situation around him clearly. Under his body was no longer a soft leather sofa, but damp and withered grass. Behind him was a row of wooden railings as thick as sea bowls, and above his head was a skylight as large as a grinding wheel, casting a light moonlight as frost and snow. He was shocked and turned pale, as if it were actually a prison cell. Immediately following in my mind was a paste. For 3 days and 3 nights in a row, he squatted and arrested the suspect in a serial murder case listed on the Red Wanted list of the International Criminal Police Organization. This caused him to be in a state of frequent physical and mental breakdown, with waves of palpitations and shortness of breath. To avoid sudden death or heart attack, he was only urged by his subordinates to sleep in the office for a short while. Result: you look so refined, but is it the reincarnation of Lei Gong? Your snoring sounds like thunder, stirring my head and brain. I vaguely saw a small, skinny young man in front of me, of the order of a deer-headed rat, complaining with 2 smears of dog oil. He slowly slipped back into the corner and sat down with his back against the wall, holding a weed in his mouth. Wang Lin stands still. Is it a dream that the captain of a criminal police officer with strict law enforcement has been arrested and imprisoned instead? My hand gripped a handful of dry grass like a life-saving straw, and my mind exploded with a loud bang, as if someone had thrown a huge rock into it, causing a storm. The massive flow of information and chaotic emotions were like a raging fire. He saw a figure with clear eyebrows and beautiful eyes swaying in the flames, and in the blink of an eye, it vanished into ashes. The Great Song Dynasty, in the first year of Zhonghe. In early April. Dongping Prefecture, Qinghe County Prison. Wang Lin's mouth twitched slightly, and he actually crossed over. However, compared to the increasing number of senior travelers in recent years, his start is quite unique. He is a native of Shandong who works along the coast. He shares the same name and surname as this 19-year-old poor scholar from Qinghe County, and his background is also very similar. After his parents passed away, his family declined. The difference is that he quickly grew up after graduating from the Criminal Investigation Academy and joining the police force, while the poor scholar became a private tutor for the wealthy Zhang family in this county. As expected, the historical cycle of talents paired with beauties and poor scholars often have romantic encounters is unstoppable. The passionate and handsome teacher who came to the Zhang family soon became interested in the beautiful maid of the host family, and the good days came to an end. In fact, Lang Qingche didn't have any intention for 2 days, so she didn't have time to do anything. At most, she held hands and gave away 2 love poems, but was beaten by Zhang Dahu, who was furious. Poverty limited his imagination, and the poor scholar had no idea what kind of taboo he had touched. The local gentry yearned for the forbidden land that he had never obtained, thinking that he had secretly taken the lead. His nameless jealousy burned. Zhang's family was in chaos for several days. So the next night, the Zhang family lost a package of gold and silver treasures, and in fact, a part of this package ended up in the pockets of the Qinghe master Hu Zhen in this county. Then came the infamous disaster of imprisonment. However, he didn't suffer any punishment. To be exact, the master of supervisor of the county was shocked. As soon as the hard words of, "If you don't come from the facts, you will fight without mercy," were dropped, the poor scholar raised his hands to fear the attack. "It's too cowardly." Wang Lin exhaled a deep and turbid breath, and the little lady with a peach blossom face, crescent eyebrows, slender waist, and a graceful and fragrant figure naturally appeared in front of her. Her name is Jinlian. At this time, Shimen was still far away in Yanggu County, and Jinlian, who was just starting to fall in love, had no knowledge of Wu Dalang and was filled with only Wang Lin Lang. "My surname is Wang, my neighbor Wu Dalang. It's really interesting." Wang Lin supported his forehead with his hand. If it weren't for his own time travel, he probably wouldn't dare to provoke Jinlian even if he were released from prison like a poor scholar. The former should still marry Wuhan University, and the established trajectory is vast and unstoppable. And in less than 2 years, on a sunny afternoon, Jinlian would still say, "Dalang, you should take your medicine." This cell was dilapidated, and Wang Lin was playing with a dry grass, twirling back and forth, calculating his current situation. As a staunch fan of water margin, a history enthusiast, and a modern law enforcement elite, he has a good understanding of ancient laws, especially those of the Song Dynasty. According to the Criminal Code of the Song Dynasty, county-level yamen can only sentence cases below cane punishment, i.e. whipping, cane punishment, while for cases sentenced to imprisonment or above, i.e. imprisonment, exile, death penalty, the county only has the right to hear and does not have the right to trial. In other words, Qinghe County must first establish a complete evidence chain, which includes not only the confession of the suspect, but also detailed and reliable personal evidence, circumstantial evidence, and various physical evidence. Only then can the case file be submitted to Dongping Prefecture and wait for the court's judgment. Based on this being an unfounded case of artificial framing and covert operation, the county government needs to fabricate a complete set of judicial documents for this, and the risk and cost of exposure are too high. So, will the master of supervisor of the county vent his personal anger and take such a big risk for just a bad gentry? Wang Lin doesn't think so. Therefore, he believes that there is a high possibility in this case that he will be detained for a period of time, which may be long or short, and it will not be resolved. Of course, it cannot be ruled out that the dog tycoon spent a lot of money, even at a high cost, and insisted on framing and convicting him. This is the worst-case scenario. According to the criminal law of the Song Dynasty, non-thieves and petty thieves with a focus on theft will be sentenced to several years in prison and deported to a certain place. Although it was not expected that there was any concern about his life, the captain of the criminal investigation team was imprisoned, which was a huge joke. Compared to him, he is more worried about being stuck in prison for a long time, and his mistress is very likely to be bullied by a dog tycoon. Or coerced into marrying his peerless good neighbor Wu Dalang. That's green. We must overturn the case, the sooner the better. It takes strength to overturn a case, or even more money than a wealthy dog. Wang Lin has gone through the memories of a poor scholar and has not found any connections in his family. Only his long-lost uncle Zhonghe, who works as a security guard in Cici village near Qinghe County, cannot remember his appearance. Looking for a relative who is a village chief to come to the official market in Qinghe County to recruit people. It's not just wishful thinking, but also daydreaming. But Wang Lin is not a poor scholar after all. His greatest skill is to find clues to break through in difficult situations. After a moment of contemplation, he thinks of the other two people. Maybe you can give it a try. It's dawn. Many of the cells around are empty. I don't know whether this means that the security situation in Qinghe County is good or that the master of supervisor of the county is a muddle-headed person. The sound of footsteps kicking and stomping came from the damp prison corridor. A soldier in his 50s hunched his back and walked slowly over. Following behind was a slender and delicate little girl, dressed in a fitted blue skirt and covered in a black veil. It's her. Wang Lin's breathing suddenly became rapid. Even with her face covered, he could feel up close the myriad of her charm, as well as the over 1,000 years of smoke and fire wrapped around her. The little girl crouched down and put down the bamboo basket in her hand. The curves of the back and buttocks were round and graceful, and Wang Lin could clearly hear the twitching of the dog's throat behind him, swallowing saliva. Wang Lin really wants to slap this dog day to death. Lin Lang, Jinlian sees you coming. My mother's voice is like a pearl falling on a jade plate. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. If you don't leave me, don't give up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. If you don't leave me, don't give up. Wang Lin sat on the dry grass, slightly stunned. He was just thinking that cutting off Pan Jinlian's beard at the beginning would mean that Wu Da would die peacefully, and Wu Song would continue to be his official. What a good thing. Many people won't die. Wang Pe, Shimen Qing, Jianmen Shen, Zhang Dujian, and these are certainly heinous crimes, but after all, there are still innocent people who have been affected, such as foster mother Yulan. What a great kindness. I didn't expect her to come. In the foul-smelling prison, when we first met, the beautiful little girl only took a gentle glance and inadvertently penetrated his strong defense brought over from a previous life. The other party realized that they were not fundamentally different from any man in this world. However, Wang Lin immediately saw a transparent halo panel on top of her head. Pan Jinlian. Life 9, Intelligence 7, Force 2, Reputation 0, Skill. Beauty. Wang Lin rubbed his eyes and was stunned. Sleeping slot, is it a game NPC? What's going on? Wang Lin pondered and turned around to probe and look at the young man with a deer head and mouse eyes. White 2. Life 7, Intelligence 3, Force 4, Reputation 1, Skill. Theft. It turned out to be a thief. Wang Lin instinctively looked at himself again, and the information in his consciousness was clear and clear. Wang Lin. Life 2, Intelligence 11, Force 2, Reputation 1, Skill. None. Compared to Pan Jinlian and Bayer, his numerical values have a yellow plus sign after him, except for intelligence. Intelligence cannot be improved. What else can be improved? System. Wang Lin touched his chin, not much surprise, only feeling that it was not satisfactory. After all, these days the system has become outdated and almost a standard feature for travelers, many of which are said to be chicken ribs. But having something is better than not having it, especially in this chaotic world where there is another trump card for survival. But how to use it? What about the system manual? Shouldn't it be triggered and bound? What other shops can exchange items for? No matter how much he shouted in his heart, the system dad remained silent. He shook his head in frustration. Perhaps just like old Wang in the team, he was a product of holding on and regressing, slowly unraveling and eventually digging it out. At this moment, Pan Jinlian's soft choked voice came to her ear. Lin Lang, it's all my fault, it's my fault that you've suffered. Wang Lin took a deep breath and tried to reply with a calm smile, how can you be blamed for this? Jinlian, it's not anyone's fault, we're all right. You must leave as soon as possible, otherwise this little girl will definitely not be able to withstand it. Wang Lin thought to himself, but then said, Jinlian, I am delighted that you can come to the prison to see me. I haven't been able to eat or sleep well these days, and I feel like Lin Lang has suffered injustice for me. My heart is about to break. This time, I took advantage of buying rouge for my wife and sneaked over. I pawned the silver hairpin on my head and gave some money to the prison guards before I was willing to let me in. I'm sorry for you. When I go out, I'll buy you a golden hairpin, so that you can wear gold and silver and live a good life. Wang Lin is really not being deceived. He just gave the little girl firm confidence. Pan Jinlian shook her head fiercely and said, I don't want those things. I just want to live a good life with Lin Lang, but what should I do now? Remembering the uncertain future of the two of them and the old man's overt and covert coercion, Pan Jinlian was deeply saddened. In the blink of an eye, she sobbed like a pear blossom with rain, wetting her face scarf. Wang Lin sighed, her crying almost broke his defense. Indeed, it is a timeless beauty. If the two feelings last for a long time, how can they last day and night? Don't be afraid, Jinlian. Unnecessary things can't convict me at all. I will soon leave here. Comfort the little girl. He immediately lowered his head to look at the messy and dirty sky blue Confucian shirt, lifted the white lining inside, decisively lifted it and bit it with his teeth, using all his strength to pull off a large piece. Then he gritted his middle finger in pain and wrote a crooked and twisted blood letter on a white cloth, writing vigorously for a while. Jinlian, please help me find a way to deliver this to the hands of Baojing Zhangsheng in Sisi Village, Qinghe County. He is my uncle, and when he sees the letter, he will go to ask someone to save me. Lin Lang, Yincheng is dozens of miles away from here. I am a woman and a Taoist family, and I am being watched by the master. How can I go and deliver the letter? My neighbor Wu Dalang is eager for justice and has a good relationship with me. If you go find Wu Dalang, he will definitely help. Wang Lin lowered his voice extremely low and said, I have hidden 10 taels of silver in my niche. I was originally planning to marry you for the purpose of passing the door. You can give 5 taels to Wu Da as a gift, and keep the other 5 taels with you as a backup, just in case. I have saved you. Pan Jinlian was overjoyed. It turned out that Lin Lang had already married her through the door. She was moved to tears and said, Lin Lang, you are so kind to me. Wang Lin's face turned slightly red, but he also felt at ease. After all, this was something he would do in the future and it was not a scam. He immediately stacked the blood letter and handed it out, earnestly warning, that old thief forced you. If you tell the jealous woman you share truthfully, he won't dare. If he forces you to get married again, there's no need to lose your composure. As long as you act in a hypocritical manner and drag on for a month or so, I will definitely be released from prison and rescue you. Jinlian, in this life and this life, if you don't leave, I won't abandon you. Lin Lang, I would rather die than let that old man succeed. Pan Jinlian gritted her silver teeth and reached out with tears to take over the white lining. Wang Lin had no doubt of her determination, as she was still just a flawless girl who had just tasted the taste of love for the first time and had not been exposed to anything too worldly. I won't be infected again in the future. He couldn't help but tightly grasp her delicate white hand and stroke it, and she responded enthusiastically. Wang Lin suddenly felt the palpitations. Intuitively, a subtle heat flow surged from Pan Jinlian's body into his body, and then scattered invisibly. At this moment, he had an inexplicable illusion. I feel like my face, which is covered in dirt, has become more delicate, my facial features have become more delicate, and my temperament has become more refined. Is this absurd and narcissistic feeling a bit shameless? He blushed slightly. I let go of my hand and the feeling disappeared immediately. Grasping Pan Jinlian's hand again, it felt like something was happening again. Wang Lin, considering the twists and turns of the experiment, made the little girl blush and blush like a ripe apple, her heart beating faster and faster. In Bayer's eyes, it was this dog man and woman who were really reckless. They openly flirted in the prison, and he spat in secret, shameless. Lin Lang, I have to leave now. Pan Jinlian reluctantly broke free from her grip, stood up and looked deeply at Wang Lin for a while, then turned around and walked away. Wang Lin looked at her back and his smile gradually faded. With a strong and kind-hearted personality, as well as a soft ear, and a running fee of 5 taels of silver, I shouldn't have refused Pan Jinlian's request. As for whether his maternal uncle Zhang Sheng would care about his family relationship and whether he would successfully receive the rescue of the two he had anticipated, he actually did not have absolute certainty. But we have to give it a try. He bet that Shernyan's character is not a problem. Wang Lin seemed lost in thought. With lifelong thoughts, the data panel comes to mind. Wang Lin. Life 2, Intelligence 11, Force 2, Reputation 0, Skill. Beauty. Beauty. Is this skill useless for an iron-blooded old man in his own family? Pan Jinlian's skill is beauty. Originally, his skill was nothing, but suddenly. Does this mean that he has the ability to unilaterally replicate other people's skills or some skills, and the means of replication are simpler, as long as he has close contact for a long time? If that's the case, this sulky system is quite interesting. Wang Lin was immediately overjoyed, but there was no sign of any excitement on the outside. He still sat quietly on the dry grass and looked up at the skylight above his head, as if sitting in a well and observing the sky. Over the years, he has restricted the freedom of countless people and has never felt that freedom is so precious. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Pan Jinlian meets Wu Dalang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Pan Jinlian meets Wu Dalang. Pan Jinlian left a fat chicken for Wang Lin. He stood with his back against the wooden fence of the prison cell, burying his head in the food, devouring it with all his might, almost like a passing storm, just like a starving ghost grabbing food. Because eating made him feel refreshed, a certain vitality in his body began to sprout and flourish like summer weeds. Bayer squatted not far away and stared closely at Wang Lin, drooling as he indulged in a frenzy. Seeing that most of the roasted chicken was about to end, this guy finally couldn't hold back and rushed over to grab it. Who is Wang Lin? A professional who has been dealing with thieves for years has long been wary of Bayer. Seeing this scumbag grabbing him with his black hand, he lifted his leg hard and kicked him directly below. Hiss. Bayer lowered his waist, covered his pants crotch, and in pain, a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He gritted his teeth and cursed, "Naomi thief, look at me and I won't kill you. Just you. A small stinky mouse in the sewer." Wang Lin disdainfully sneered but never stopped. He continued to nibble the remaining chicken leg and throw away the chicken bone in a few bites. Without further ado, he immediately rushed up and kicked Bayer, but only stumbled. The two fought fiercely together. This body is too weak, and theoretically he is not a match for street thugs like Bayer, a habitual thief. However, his meticulously crafted capture skills and years of experience in catching thieves are enough to make up for a slight gap in military strength. Bayer never dreamed that the poor scholar would be so difficult to deal with. Although he didn't have much strength, he couldn't shake or break free like yellow mud. In the end, he was hugged by Wang Linsheng and pushed to the corner of the cell. When the delay was enough, his hands felt an indescribable tingling and stretching sensation. Wang Lin immediately turned his fist into his palm and fiercely thrust it into Bayer's neck. Ah! My mother! Bayer let out a pig-like howl. Wang Lin took advantage of the situation and slashed fiercely a few more times, and the scumbag finally turned black in front of him and fainted. Wang Lin also ignored Bayer and quietly looked inside. There was indeed a Qi option in the skill column. Also, health increased from 2 to 2.1, and strength increased from 2 to 2.3. Eating strengthens health. Does fighting increase strength? In addition, complete or partial replication of skills. This is the basic rule of the system he has explored so far, which is so domineering and illogical. It goes without saying much about health value. If intelligence value represents innate intelligence and therefore cannot be improved, force value is understood as strength, and skills are used as a means of using strength, then what does reputation value represent? Isn't it just a false name? Wang Linci thought and thought, feeling that the silent system dad wouldn't be so boring, but for now, let's not worry about how to use the copied skills. His mind flashed. My hands were burning hot, and I felt incredibly agile and light. I repeatedly experienced it and couldn't help but smile bitterly. To put it bluntly, the so-called Huai is the thief's hand, which is mainly reflected in the speed of stealing things. Of course, it is better to do nothing without stealing. At this moment, the sound of disorderly footsteps passed by, and Wang Lin's corner of the eye caught a glimpse of two prison guards escorting a tall and fierce man with a beard all over his face. Mutant Street. This is the busiest commercial street in Qinghe County, and the county government is located on this street. On this street, the most famous ones are not those who run restaurants, tea shops, or silver pawn shops, nor are they the only popular girls in the city, but rather Wuda, who sells pancakes and is given the nickname, 3-inch ding, gu shu pai. His pancake stall is almost a landmark of Qinghe County, don't be too eye-catching. Today, Wuhan University's business is particularly good. Before noon, over 100 hot pancakes made early in the morning were snatched away. People may be a bit sleazy, but pancakes are really delicious. The outer crispy and inner tender, fresh and delicious. The actual price is not cheap either, a pancake costs 3 yuan. Based on his daily sales of at least 100, Wu Da's income is quite good. After all, during these years, the constables and miscellaneous workers in the county government only earned 200 to 300 yuan a day. So Pan Jinlian quickly found Wu Da, who was just about to enter the house with a burden on her shoulders. She never expected that there would be such a short, ugly, and despicable person in this world, who only reached her waist. The little girl hesitated for a while, but seeing no one around, she endured her psychological discomfort and stepped forward to stop Wu Da's way. "Little lady, are you?" "Brother Wu, my name is Pan Jinlian. Please save Lin Lang." Pan Jinlian instinctively pulled down her veil, revealing her seductive and unparalleled face that could be blown with a bullet, and pretended to kneel down. Wu Da was startled, wanting to help but not daring, so he rubbed his hands to avoid going over and said, "Little lady, what are you doing? Get up quickly, speak slowly if you have something to say." Pan Jinlian blushed and choked her throat, quickly revealing her intentions. Her expression was extremely charming, but she had no intention of seducing Wuhan University at all. This was almost her instinct. After speaking, he put Wang Lin's blood letter and the 5 taels of silver into Wu Da's hands. Wu Da was at a loss for a long time before stuttering and saying, "Young lady, I have heard some about Brother Lin. I know that Brother Lin is literate and not a thief of people's property, but I also have to sell pancakes." Seeing that Wu Da seemed to be evading, Pan Jinlian's eyes were filled with tears and she didn't hesitate. She decisively took out the remaining 5 taels of silver from her arms and handed them over. "Brother Wu, those 5 taels will be your allowance. These 5 taels will be used to make up for your loss. Please show mercy and save Lin Lang." Wu Da hesitated for a moment, pondering for a while. Although he was ugly, he was extremely kind-hearted. His neighbor Wang Lin, who had a good relationship, had an accident and begged him. Especially the beautiful little girl in front of him, who was as beautiful as a lotus in water, cried into tears. He was so lovable that he couldn't refuse. Remembering that it was just a trip to Qinghe County to deliver a letter, with an extra 2 days of travel and selling a few hundred less pancakes without dying of hunger, I gritted my teeth and agreed, but then firmly pushed back the 10 taels of silver. "Young lady, Brother Lin is deeply imprisoned and needs money. I can't take this silver. Don't worry, I will set off to Qinghe County early tomorrow morning and help Brother Lin deliver the letter. Nu and Lin Lang will never forget Brother Wu's great kindness in their entire lives." Pan Jinlian was overjoyed, and this time she sincerely bowed down. with a slender waist supporting the willow, and buttocks like a full moon. The wooden hairpin on her head shook and almost pierced Wu Da's forehead. Pan Jinlian thanked Wu Dalang with great gratitude and never dared to stay any longer. She hurriedly returned to Zhang's mansion. This wealthy family is entangled with thousands of guan, with rice rotting into a warehouse. The yellow one is gold, and the white one is silver, making it the richest person in the county. However, they have no children under their command, leaving no one to inherit their wealth. In the twilight of my old age, my lust never dies. If it weren't for Lady Yu's jealousy, I wouldn't know how much my beautiful concubine would have to pay. But always like that, with a pear blossom pressing down on a crabapple, he probably won't be able to survive for a few days. Pan Jinlian was sold into the Zhang family at the age of 12 or 13, and seeing her gradually growing fair and slender, the old man's heart was itchy and unbearable. Unfortunately, Yu sure watched too closely. He never caught the opportunity and instead took advantage of the poor scholar Wang Lin. Thinking of this incident, Zhang Dahu regretted his hatred and wished he could eat Wang Lin's flesh and blood raw. At this moment, he lay on the soft couch at the entrance of the flower hall, playing with his belly full of flower intestines, watching Pan Jinlian swiftly enter the inner house, his thief's heart rising again. He sat up abruptly and shouted, "Jinlian, come here." Pan Jinlian looked up and saw this old thing, feeling disgusted and frightened, but had to stop her steps. Zhang Dahu walked over with a narrowed expression and spread out his hand. There is a bright pearl necklace inside, as well as 3 or 5 bright golden beans. Dao. Jinlian, you have to follow me, these are all yours. Pan Jinlian shook her head and said, "Master, I don't have this lucky fate as a servant. Besides, let the lady know that I will kill the servant. Don't worry about that wife. In this mansion, I still have the final say." Zhang Dahu chuckled twice and stepped forward to embrace him. Pan Jinlian immediately took 2 or 3 steps back and said, "Master, Madam is still waiting for the servant to reply." Zhang Dahu pounced and threatened with embarrassment and anger, "You lowly servant, if you keep pushing around like this, I will marry you to those 3-inch ding in gushu pie from the county, making you unable to turn over for a lifetime." Pan Jinlian's pretty face changed, and she remembered Wang Lin's words. Her red lips pursed tightly, but she remained silent and turned around before leaving. As long as she stays by Yu's side, she is very safe. Collect and follow up on reading. 2 shifts per day. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Fighting death prisoners in a desperate situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Fighting death prisoners in a desperate situation. In the evening, the light inside the prison became even dimmer. It's not too common for inmates to engage in physical altercations in the prison, so the prison guards are too lazy to take care of the fight between Wang Lin and Bayer. Just another burly and fierce man wearing shackles was brought in, and before entering the prison door, one of the prison guards actually broke his shackles. The elderly prisoner glanced at Wang Lin with a very dim gaze, numb as if looking at a corpse. Wang Lin sat in the southwest corner of the prison cell, clenching his fists tightly. Sun Hu. Life 6, Intelligence 2, Force 6, Reputation 1, Skill. Slaughter. He frowned. This person was a butcher, with 3 times his strength and a strong aura of blood and killing emanating from his body. Unexpectedly, the prison guards locked up a serious criminal or even a death row inmate in a regular cell, even though there were still several vacant rooms next door. Wang Lin's heart was alert and immediately reached the limit. However, after entering the prison cell, Sun Hu ignored Wang Lin and Bayer and lay on the hay, lying on all 4s and sleeping soundly. Wang Lin remained silent with a stern tone. Bayer woke up early and hid in the corner, glaring at Wang Lin with hatred, but did not dare to retaliate again. Of course, he was mainly afraid of the fierce man who came in from behind. Wang Lin ignored Bayer directly and quickly polished the chicken leg bone in his hand on the stone wall behind him. As the night grew deeper, the cell was almost pitch black. Sun Hu's dense snoring suddenly subsided, and when he suddenly turned over and sat up, Bai was so scared that he shrank back and almost shouted out. Wang Lin clenched onto the sharp chicken bone. Sun Hu looked at Wang Lin. The wolf-like green eyes, like two flickering ghostly flames, were ferocious without any disguise. Sun Hu rushed over and grabbed Wang Lin's clothes with his big hands, like a fan. With a shout, he effortlessly lifted him up and pressed him tightly against the wall. Wang Lin's face suddenly changed. This person has extraordinary strength, beyond his expectations, controlling him like a chicken pinching a grass, and he has no resistance at all. At the critical moment of life and death, he actually calmed down. After all, as a criminal police officer in his previous life, he had to go through life and death, constantly fighting against various criminals, and had already tempered his mind to a very hard state. Fear, panic, can only lead to a more tragic death. He simply gave up the meaningless struggle, adjusted his breathing slightly, and tried to relax his body as much as possible. He said calmly, "You and I have no grudges. Why did you kill me?" Sun Hu sneered coldly and said, "I'm so poor that I'll let you understand. I just took money from the wealthy Zhang family and came specifically to take your despicable life." A trace of indifference swept through Wang Lin's eyes. Sure enough, this ancient society was even darker than he had imagined, and the dog tycoon was even more ruthless than he had guessed. Knowing that it was difficult to convict him through normal channels, he decided to open up his joints and actually committed murder. "It seems that you are a death row inmate, so you don't care about saving my life." Wang Lin's right hand slowly moved upwards. "Haha, I have killed 3 people before and after. After autumn, I will be interrogated and executed. If I kill you poor again, I can still leave some living money for my mother. Actually, even if you die, your mother can't survive even if she has money in her hands, and it may even make her die faster. Damn it, dare you curse my mother." Sun Hu chuckled silently, his other hand forcefully gripping Wang Lin's throat and squeezing it tightly. Wang Lin's veins erupted on his face, almost suffocating. In a flash, his right hand, which clenched the chicken bone, lifted up and stabbed out. This was the first time that he used the speed of Kuai, not to steal but to stab Sun Hu's left eye without hesitation. Due to his speed being too fast, Sun Hu's initial reaction was only a slight shock, and then he looked up and let out a terrifying scream. His hand that was stuck in Wang Lin's throat naturally loosened. Sun Hu covered his blinded left eye with his hand, and crimson blood seeped out from between his fingers. He didn't have time to make any further adjustments or counterattacks, and Wang Lin's sharp bone knife fiercely stabbed into his other eye without hesitation. Cha! It was like piercing into a sticky mud, and Wang Lin decisively pulled out the half-broken bone knife with blood, allowing that half to be caught in Sun Hu's bleeding eye sockets, and quickly retreated to the wooden fence at the outermost edge of the cell. Sun Hu's fierce roar shook the entire prison like a wild beast. In the dark corner, the withered mice ran around. Sun Hu's eyes were blinded by stabbing, and blood was streaming down his face from his beard. His long hair was scattered like a demon, waving his hands as he frantically charged through the prison cell. Wang Lin calmly dodged left and right, and the half-bone cutting knife in his hand was still tightly clenched. Bai was scared out of his wits. He could only reluctantly press his body against the wall and cry out with a crying voice, "Someone, kill someone." The corridor was filled with curses and running sounds. Wang Lin quietly threw the bone knife onto the ground, stomped on it with his feet, stomped it into pieces, and covered it with dry grass. His strength has now increased to 4.5, successfully replicating from Sun Hu to his skill, slaughter knife. He feels full of energy and blood, full of strength. The force value obtained by knocking out Bai was only a pitiful 0.3, but this time it was 2.2. Wang Lin had a clear understanding that the amount of force value is related to the level of the target's force value, and it is estimated that there are also random factors involved. This is not important, what's important is that his current strength has surpassed that of a local ruffian like Bayer, approaching a fierce thief like Sun Hu, and has gained preliminary self-protection ability. Sun Hu passed out in pain, lost too much blood, and was on the verge of death. Wang Lin saw only 2 prison guards with torches coming, and his mouth curved slightly. The prisoner in his 30s was shocked and pale when he saw Sun Hu's tragic situation. He bent down to explore his breath and breathed a sigh of relief. The old prison guard's eyes were clouded with shock, and he quickly glanced at Wang Lin. The prison guard stood up and cursed at Wang Lin, "You poor and have eaten the courage of a bear-heart leopard. How dare you commit violence in the prison?" Wang Lin said indifferently, "Brother prisoner, don't falsely accuse good people. As a scholar with no strength to bind a chicken, how can I fight such a cruel death row prisoner like him?" The death row inmate suddenly went crazy and almost choked me to death. Later on, he seemed to have fallen ill, scratching and scratching everywhere, and blinding himself. The prison was dark and bustling, and I didn't know why. He can testify. Wang Lin smiled lightly and pointed to Bayer. Bayer's face looks very ugly. His gaze dodged, and the corner of his mouth twitched as he whispered, "Yes, he seems to have been possessed by evil and almost killed us." The 2 prison guards certainly don't believe it. However, hiding on the side and muttering for a long time, he soon dragged Sun Hu away and locked him up in another cell. I didn't pay attention to Wang Lin anymore. How could this casual and light-hearted reason be simply evaded? Bayer couldn't believe his own eyes. When did the Black Heart prisoner become so talkative? Bayer secretly glanced at Wang Lin and saw the young man sleeping peacefully with his back against the wall, his eyes flashing with deep fear. I feel lucky again. As the red sun rises and the temperature rises, the smell inside the cell becomes even more unpleasant. Wang Lin stretched lazily and slowly stood up. Bayer curled up and hid in the corner, afraid to lift his head. The death row inmate's son who is now alive or dead, and Wang Lin is too lazy to think about it. At least he can prolong his life for a few days. If the prison guards stop his bleeding in time, it won't be a problem to ask for his execution in autumn. He predicted that the prison guards would turn big things into small ones. Imprisoning death row inmates and ordinary suspects in the same place is already a violation of rules and cannot be seen clearly. It's a dirty trick to put on the table. If this matter escalates, the first unlucky ones would be these two prison guards who took black money. Of course, the premise is that Sun Hu cannot die immediately. Otherwise, they can only report to the county. So Wang Lin didn't really kill Sun Hu. At that time, he had a good chance to pierce through the throat of this bandit and deliver a fatal blow. He has seen many of the dirty things in prison, both ancient and modern. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Wang Lin Submission Letter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Wang Lin's Submission Letter. Another day. There are two villages outside the east gate of Qinghe County, one is Zhonghe village and the other is Qinghe village, separated by a large stream. In the afternoon. The stream murmurs, with green willows forming a forest. A 40-year-old man hurriedly crossed the blue stone arch bridge and entered Zhonghe village from Qinghe village. There is a small courtyard surrounded by a wooden fence in the southeast corner of the village, with two thatched cottages and a grape-green trellis. A 20.8 or 19-year-old Confucian scholar with a clear eyebrow and a long white beard was strolling around the courtyard holding a book. As he grew up, the man stepped forward and knocked on the door, walked in and bowed with a fist, respectfully saying, "Please, Mr. Jiaoliang, save my nephew's life." Zhang Baozheng. The Confucian scholar was slightly surprised and said, "Saving your nephew? Where did this come from?" The grown man was Zhang Sheng, the uncle of a poor scholar. He repeatedly arched his hands, recounted his intentions, and handed Wang Lin's blood letter over. The Confucian scholar is naturally Wu Yong, a scholar from Qinghe village. Wu Yong frowned. He only knew Zhang Sheng, the protector of Dongshi village, from an ordinary acquaintance. That's all. The latter suddenly came to the door and begged to save his nephew. Isn't it strange? Although Wu Yong took the folded white lining, he didn't open it and asked with a faint smile, Zhang Baozheng, I am the next poor scholar with clean sleeves, no family assets, and no strength to bind chickens. How can I go to Qinghe County to save your nephew? Zhang Xing let out a sigh. In fact, he also knows that being presumptuous, having no relatives or connections with others, such shallow and profound communication is already difficult for others. Moreover, this Wu scholar has inherent talent, but he is only a teacher in CC village. He is humble and speaks lightly, so he has no ability to go to Qinghe County to save people. It's just that my nephew wrote earnestly on his blood letter, thinking that his life was at stake, and he bravely walked in front of his deceased sister. Zhang Xing smiled bitterly and saluted Wu Yong again, saying, Excuse me, sir, before turning around and walking. After Zhang Xing left, Wu Yong still opened the white lining. Directly brushing past the plea for help, there was a crooked and twisted poem written by the immortal of Linjiang, blood-stained and speechless as he stroked his beard. I have read 10,000 volumes of scriptures, and I have always had a clever mind. I have learned the essence of the 6 strategies and 3 strategies. I have hidden a general in my chest, and hidden a powerful soldier in my belly. I dare to deceive Zhuge Liang with my strategies, but Chen Ping is not a match for his talent. I have used some tricks and have been amazed by ghosts and gods. My name is Wu Xuejiu, and my name is Zhidwishing. Immediately Wu Yong burst into laughter. This obvious flattery to him is certainly far from rhetoric, but the work is neat and orderly, and the key is to express what Wu Yong wants to say but doesn't know how to say. Although he lives in the countryside, he has a high regard for himself and often compares himself to Zhuge Kongming, only cherishing his talents but not encountering them. A stranger in distress in Qinghe County, a young scholar, went to great lengths to send himself such a petition, and in the name of seeking help, gave him the nickname Zijuoxing. Wu Yongxi repeatedly felt that it was quite appropriate, and he was greatly benefited in his heart. Baojing Chaogai in Cici village is a wealthy local household, known for his generous behavior. Chaogai is practicing on the martial arts field, practicing bones and muscles, and practicing sticks. He has never married in his life, so he likes to practice martial arts and make friends around the world. Upon hearing from the family newspaper that Wu Xuejiu has arrived, he greeted him with a big smile and said, The professor has arrived just in time, but he is just waiting for someone to invite him over to the village for a drink. Chao Gai grabbed Wu Yong's arm and the two walked towards the flower hall with their backs hooked. This scene seemed somewhat discordant, but Wu Yong remained calm and laughed incessantly. The servant quickly laid out fruits, vegetables, and a plate of sauce lamb, and brought 2 bottles of good wine. Chao Gai poured the wine himself and then raised the bowl, saying, Professor, please. Bao Zheng, please. The 2 of them finished 3 bowls in a row, and Chao Gai finally put down his bowl and said discontentedly, Professor, it's been a long time since we've been together in the manner. Is it because Chao Gai was negligent? Wu Yongxiao said, Bao Zheng, I'm not talking about anything. We make friends without distinguishing each other. I've only been studying at home these days and have no leisure time. Okay, since that's the case, we should drink happily today and never return until we're drunk. Wu Yong nodded with a smile, but said calmly, Is there a shortage of a school teacher here in Baozheng? Have you ever found someone? Chao Gai shook his head. I heard that Zhang Sheng, the Baozheng of Dongshi village, has a nephew who teaches to wealthy families in Qinghe County. He has some talent and was planning to recommend him to the village a few days ago. Zhang Sheng's nephew. His sister's marriage to Qinghe County is not fake. Chao Gai waved his hand. Since it's what the professor wants to introduce, let him come. In terms of money, we can't treat him unfairly. Wu Yong shook his head and sighed, Oh, it's too late, Bao Zheng. That servant has offended the master's family for some reason. He was framed and slandered by the wealthy family for stealing property. He has now been sent to the prison and forced to surrender. Chao Gai never saw such injustice in his life, and besides, Wu Yong deliberately intervened for a while. He immediately stood up and angrily said, "A scholar who is knowledgeable and reasonable is not a thief. Such a big dog, such a person who falsely accuses a good person, really deserves to be killed. If it were in Yuncheng, I would go straight to the door and see if that person dared to harm anyone." If he were in Yuncheng, Chao Gai would really know. When Wu Yong saw the heat was up, he took out Wang Lin's memorial letter and recited the poem, The Immortal of Linjiang, to Chao Gai. Chao Gai laughed loudly and said, "Professor, is this what Zhang Sheng's nephew wrote to you? All right, it's great." As expected, his talent is not shallow, and the key is that he is still a wonderful person. This nickname of Zijuoxing is simply amazing. Wu Yong's face turned slightly red. He can't boast, he must use Chao Gai's mouth to praise this noble title. Of course, it also caught Chao Gai's attention to Wang Lin's thoughts. If he directly mentioned the rescue of Wang Lin, it would be a bit abrupt, and it took so long to lay the groundwork, especially for the Linjiang immortal in this poem. Although he praised Wu Yong, it also made Chao Gai feel comfortable and secretly cherish his talents. Wu Yong's cleverness of mind is evident. Chao Gai drank it all in one gulp and said, "Last night, I dreamt of the Big Dipper falling straight onto my roof. There was also a small star on the handle of the dipper, which had turned into white light. I wondered if the dream of starry illumination was good or bad, and I was about to find the professor to decompose it. However, today I heard that this scholar had given the professor the nickname of the Wisdom Star, which is exactly in line with the dream. So it's also considered fate, why not save him?" Wu Yong smiled but remained silent. For heroes like Chao Gai who value money like dirt, despite living in his hometown, he actually interacts with many people in the officialdom. Qinghe County is not far either. He really has an acquaintance there, Zhou Ping, the head of the county government. Back then, Zhou Ping was destitute and penniless, wandering to Yuncheng. Chao Gai not only generously donated money, but also promised a yellow flower girl in the village to be his wife, and gave him a large sum of money as a dowry. Over the years, the two families have had constant exchanges. Having decided to save someone, Chao Gai was impatient and didn't like to drag things around. He immediately summoned the butler Chao Er and ordered, "Chao Er, go to the accounting room and pay 500 taels of silver. Hurry up and personally go to Qinghe County to find the county magistrate Zhou Ping. He said that my nephew named Wang Lin was framed and imprisoned, and he must find a way to rescue him. If you still need to spend money on the silver, I will cover it all." Chao Er clenched his fists and took orders to leave. Wu Yong lifted his bowl and praised, "To uphold righteousness and sparse wealth, with righteousness at the forefront, I am truly a first-class hero in this world." Chao Gai laughed heartily and raised his bowl to touch Wu Yong, saying, "Professor, money is an external possession. If you don't bring it to life or take it with you, what's the point? It's just 500 taels of silver. If you can save that scholar's life, it would be considered a merit." The two laughed heartily and parted ways happily that day. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Unauthorized Assault in a Homestead. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Unauthorized Assault in a Homestead for Zhou Ping, the capital of Qinghe County. Chao Gai was grateful to him for his help, and the people who Chao officials wanted to save would do their best. Zhou Ping is also considered the #1 figure in Qinghe County. If it weren't for the intervention and arrangement of Master Qingu Huzhen in Wang Lin's case, he would have been able to overturn the case for Wang Lin with just a few strokes, without having to spend too much money. But just because Huzhen was involved, Zhou Ping did not dare to neglect it. After thinking about it, he found Zhen Er, the father of Zhen, a concubine and supervisor of the County Song Dynasty, to be safe. It should be noted that 500 taels of white silver is a huge sum of money at the moment. The so called money can make the devil push the mill. It will also make the Zhen family exert all their strength in bed. That is, one night, with the personal intervention of the supervisor of the county, Wang Lin was corrected and closed the case the next morning, and released from prison. Hu Zhen was powerless and too lazy to take care of it. Anyway, he has taken the money he should have taken and also completed the tasks he should have done. What can Mr. Zhang do with him? He can only suffer losses. So in the morning, when Pan Jinlian stole a visit to the prison while shopping for you, she heard that Lin Lang had been acquitted and burst into tears of joy on the spot. Lin Lang indeed did not coax the slaves. Wang Lin's home is located in a street behind Muten Street. A quadrangle courtyard with a single door, 3 green-tiled houses, a thatched side house, a small courtyard of about 10 square meters, and a gate facing the street are common residential buildings in Qinghe County. Next door lives Wuhan University, which sells pancakes. Wang Lin relied on the memory of a poor scholar to drive home with ease. The first thing to do when entering is to push open the water jar in a corner of the living room, lift a few blue bricks on the ground, and fumble for a bag of silver from inside. This is the entire wealth left by his predecessor's parents to his daughter-in-law, the Wang family, which is approximately 150-60 taels. As for the silver he told Pan Jinlian that was hidden in the niche, it was indeed saved up by the poor scholar himself through frugality. This has nothing to do with whether or not to trust Pan Jinlian. He has traveled to a strange ancient world out of thin air, and how could he not leave himself some way out? If you have money in your hand, your heart will not panic. As a visionary traveler, he certainly has many ideas for making money, but monetization takes time. The first thing he needs to face is survival. He can't just go out of prison and become a beggar on the streets. Not long after, I heard the courtyard door creak open and someone came in. It was indeed Pan Jinlian. The charming little girl still put on her skirt and wore a shiny bun, with tears of joy hanging on her pretty face. Her curvaceous body reflected a graceful shadow in the brilliant sunlight. As soon as Wang Lin walked out, the little girl choked up and rushed into his arms with a gust of fragrant wind. He took a slight breath and hugged her tightly, letting her lie in his arms, quietly venting her anxiety and unease, gently caressing her delicate back with his hand. The little girl's crying disappeared at some point, slowly blushing with embarrassment. Her watery apricot eyes seemed to be closed, and her long eyelashes flickered and flickered. She lay in Wang Lin's arms and never dared to look up again. Realizing that Lin Lang's hands were comforting her, she felt like her whole body had melted into water. Of course, Wang Lin is not his junior brother, but all the women he has experienced in his previous life combined cannot be compared to the seductive little girl in his arms. With a soft and gentle embrace, he felt a palpitation from the depths of his soul. I remembered Tang Xianzu's words again. I don't know where it started, but I keep moving forward. It really makes sense, Mr. Tang is definitely an experienced driver. The two embraced each other for a moment of warmth. Pan Jinlian looked at the sun and saw that it was not early, worried that Yushir was in a hurry, so she wanted to leave. Wang Lin didn't want to let her go, but when he thought about it, his mother was also worried. The Song dynasty had strict etiquette, and it was not fair to say that a single man and a widow lived together under the same name. Moreover, since I am still a maid from another family, if I hide at home or elope, it would be a serious crime. The matter of thanking Wu Da for his help and the 2 rescuers from Qinghe County can be postponed. We must first find a way to help the young lady escape. As he was thinking about it, the courtyard door was knocked on with a deafening sound. Bastard, open the door, open the door. Pan Jinlian could hear the voice of Go Liang, the guardian of the Zhang family's courtyard. This guy was like a crazy dog biting people. She became anxious and secretly came to the Wang family to meet a lover. If caught by the master's family, the consequences could be imagined. She tugged at Wang Lin's collar, her pretty face turning pale. Wang Lin was not panicked. He pointed to the firewood room in the courtyard and whispered, "Jinlian, there is a back door leading to the alley behind the firewood room. You should hurry through the back door and remember my words. Be careful when you go back to the Zhang family. Allow me a few days and I will definitely find a way to rescue you." "I know now." Pan Jinlian hurriedly left. The door was kicked and shaken by several servants of the Zhang family, and they were about to break in. "What a arrogant dog," Wang Lin sneered. He was not the cowardly poor scholar who could be easily manipulated. He went straight to the kitchen and took out a kitchen knife. Outside the door, Go Liang, the guardian of Zhang Dahu's house, jumped up and kicked fiercely at the door of the Wang family. Behind him, two other servants, Zhang Niu and Zhang Bao, were cheering and causing the neighbors to come and watch. Go Liang kicked again, but the door suddenly opened and couldn't help but kick in the air. "Due to excessive force, I was tripped by Wang Lin's outstretched leg and fell, resulting in a dog biting on the mud." Before Go Liang could curse out loud, he received a knife from Wang Lin on his shoulder and back, followed by another knife, which was so simple and rough. Two wounds, about inches wide and deep, were filled with blood, splattering all over Wang Lin. Go Liang gritted his teeth in pain and screamed in agony. Just as he was about to get up and fight against Wang Lin, he was brutally stabbed in the back of his head by Wang Lin's back. He then kicked his legs and fainted. Zhang Niu and Zhang Bao Ben came with a fierce force, and suddenly saw Go Liang, the most capable of fighting among the three, being chopped to the ground. The poor scholar Wang Lin, who should have been weak and unstoppable, was covered in blood, and he was holding a sharp and dazzling kitchen knife in his hand, which seemed to be ferocious. The knife was still dripping with blood, and his soul was immediately frightened out of possession. The two of them shouted loudly that they had killed someone, but they hid far away on the street, ready to flee at any time. Not long after, Wang Lin dragged Go Liang, who had fainted with blood, out of the door and left a bloodstain on the ground. He casually threw Go Liang on the street and inserted the bleeding kitchen knife in his hand into his waist. He clenched his fists and shouted loudly to the onlookers, "According to the criminal law of the Song Dynasty, if you break into a house without reason, you can either commit adultery or theft, but you are not guilty of killing him. Please help me as a witness." Wang Lin is covered in blood. This scene is really terrifying. The onlookers were stunned, and it was true that they were saying so. But when did the cowardly scholar of the Wang family become so fierce, wielding a knife and cutting people? Everyone instinctively shrank back. Zhang Niu and Zhang Bao's face turned pale and pale. The two of them hid in the distance and yelled fiercely inwardly, "Wang Lin, how dare you hide my servant girl and injure my guard? What should you do?" "Nonsense, if you have evidence, go to the county government to sue me." Wang Lin sneered and swung his kitchen knife with his back hand, forcefully chopping at his wooden door lintel. The knife hummed and rang. "Zhang family's dog servants, listen to me carefully. If you dare to come knocking on your door and harass me, and force me to break into a house, I will see and chop one at a time." Wang Lin clapped his hands and then clenched his fists at the onlookers, saying, "Excuse me, neighbors. I'll invite everyone to drink and apologize another day." He then confidently returned home and closed the door tightly. Of course, he did not kill Go Liang, but rather aimed to gain power. He just casually cut two knives, which were not crucial and could not be killed. Moreover, the criminal law of the Great Song Dynasty was very clear, and he was fully legitimate in defense. As a decisive criminal police officer, he knew that he could only kill chickens and scare monkeys against the evil slaves of the Zhang family who acted as a scapegoat, otherwise trouble would continue in the future. Guanggo, a wealthy family, is buying and killing him. He has a big grudge against life and death, and sooner or later he will be avenged. Can his hands still be weak? As expected, Go Liang's strength was the same as Baier's, but his strength bonus this time was 0.5, which was 0.2 more than by heirs last time, indicating that the damage was higher. Force increased to 5, health increased by 0.1 to 2.2, and reputation increased to 3. If we follow this logic, wouldn't the bonus of killing force be even higher? Wang Lin's mouth twitched. Any person who commits heinous crimes will not be lenient when it is time to kill, but it is impossible for them to engage in mass killings in order to increase their strength. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Jealous Lady Yu Goes to Jinggang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The jealous lady Yu goes to Jinggang. The young lady hurriedly returned to the Zhang family, but as soon as she entered, she was entangled by the wealthy Zhang family. The little girl is really annoyed in her heart. Does this old thing just stare at herself all day long without doing anything else? In fact, knowing that Wang Lin was released, and hearing that he had lost the relationship with the master of supervisor of the Qinghe County, the big dog family hated him so much that his teeth itched. Seizing Pan Jinlian's lust is obviously even more urgent as a result. You lowly servant, are you going to have a private meeting again? Let's see if I don't break your legs. The young lady defended herself. I went out to buy rouge, toner, and powder for my wife. Fart it. Don't think I don't know what you, a lowly servant, are thinking. What kind of chaste woman are you pretending to be in front of me? The last time I warned you, will you comply or not? Little girl. I would rather die than obey. Okay, I'll marry you to that 3-inch dingo bark. I'd rather pay the dowry upside down than give that little beast surnamed Wang a discount. The dog tycoon gritted his teeth and stomped his feet, fiercely approaching, then went to hug him. The little girl's face changed and she took 2 steps back to avoid it, but was grabbed by the old man's arm and couldn't let go. Don't be fooled by the age of this old man, he really has some strength to open his mind. The big dog grinned and tugged at the little girl as she headed towards the side hall. She struggled desperately and shouted loudly. At this moment, a crisp sound could be heard not far away. On the exquisite corridor, a woman in a brocade skirt in her 50s stood there, angrily throwing a string of pearls she was playing with to the ground. The round and flowing pearls immediately bounced around. Yu has a kind face and a dignified expression. But only the girls around her knew what kind of person the Zhang family hostess was. She was narrow-minded, ruthless, talkative, and typical of a jealous woman. Just thinking about it, if she were a kind-hearted person, how could she suppress this flashy dog tycoon for a lifetime? Jinlian, my master knows all about your little devilish thoughts. Yu smiled slightly and said, I'm really puzzled. There are also many beautiful girls in this mansion. Why did this old guy fall in love with you? I don't know. My old age is also very strange. If you agree to marry my master as a concubine, there is no need to say anything about your future glory and wealth. If you can still give birth to a man and a half daughters, it is impossible that the vast family business of the Zhang family will fall into your hands. Why do you resist to death? Madame treats Jinlian with kindness like a mountain, like a mother. Servants and maids would never do such ungrateful things like pigs and dogs. You chuckled lightly and said, you have such thoughts, but I didn't care for you in vain. However, you just said it nicely. You must have refused for the sake of that servant from the Wang family. I really saw it. Pan Jinlian lowered her head, knowing that any defense would be useless. If you really like that Wang Lin, it's not impossible for you to complete your old body, said Yu Shi. Pan Jinlian was overjoyed, but immediately remembered what kind of person this old woman was. How could she have such kindness? He quickly concealed his joyful emotions and silently said, I am willing to serve my wife for the rest of my life, and I will not marry anyone. Really? Yu Shi smiled rather than smiled. Yu Shi thought to herself, it seems that this fox seductive son can no longer stay by her side. If she stays, that old thing will never give up. But we can't just take advantage of the small and impoverished Wang family. As the saying goes, the fat and water don't flow into outsiders' fields. It's better to betroth her to her maternal nephew Yu Zhao as a child. In the future, the property of this Zhang family will ultimately be handed over to Yu Zhao, and only the niece of his mother's family can take care of him in his old age. Yu Shi thought to himself, but he didn't say anything. He smiled and said, "I've been staying in the mansion these past few days feeling really suffocated. I want to go back to my mother's house and rest for a few days. Jinlian, please order me to prepare a sedan chair. Let's have lunch and set off." Pan Jinlian exclaimed and quickly went to arrange. Looking at her delicate figure, the gentle smile on Yu's face instantly faded and turned into a hint of coldness. He exchanged a glance with the dog tycoon standing nearby, spat hard on the ground, and cursed, "Shameless old pig and dog, they deserve to have their children and grandchildren cut off." The dog owner walked away in frustration. "It's really like ordering tofu with brine, one thing is worth it." Wang Lin has been staying at the tea shop across from the Zhang family for over an hour. 3 or 5 bowls of tea were served, 7 or 8 plates of fruit dim sum were ordered, and 3 jin of soy sauce meat was ordered from the restaurant next door. Dr. T's old grandson was surprised to see when this gentle young scholar from the Wang family would become a foodie. These things were enough for 2 or 3 strong men to eat, but he didn't stop talking. He didn't know that Wang Lin became more and more energetic as he ate, and his qi and blood became stronger as he ate. Wang Lin always felt that his initial health was too low, so he decided to eat first before making a decision. In fact, Wang Lin was also a famous foodie in the bureau in his previous life, relying on eating to increase his health. Perhaps the system was tailor-made for him. Until around noon, a small red sedan chair, surrounded by 2 or 3 maids and 5 or 6 servants, left the Zhang family. Wang Lin hurriedly settled the bill and followed behind. Pan Jinlian had previously sent a message to Wang Lin from the leftover fruit seller at the Qian Tua doorstep. When he learned that the young lady was going to stay with the Yu family at her mother's house in Yanggu County, he was not at ease and decided to secretly follow her. He vaguely felt that the way to save Pan Jinlian from escaping should also come from the jealous woman Yu Shi. The Yu family left the city and headed straight towards Yanggu County, about 20 miles away. As the sunset was about to set, we arrived at a market town called Jinggang, which was nearly 20 miles away from the boundary of Yanggu County. Jinggang. Wang Lin was secretly surprised. "Isn't this the place where Wusong fights tigers?" Fortunately, he watched the people coming and going under Jinggang Hill, and the merchant caravan was endless. He did not see any official notices from Qinghe County or Yanggu County. He thought to himself that there was still more than a year left before Wusong returned from Caijin in Sangzhou to visit Wuhan University. So, the so-called hanging-eyed white forehead beetle that appeared on duty probably never existed, right? The Yu family and their group rested at a tea shop under their guard. Wang Lin quietly walked around twice and didn't notice the restaurant in the water margin where 3 bowls are not on duty. He didn't care either, so he found another outdoor restaurant on the spot and ordered 2 plates of cooked beef to feast on. As the red sun gradually descended from the west, the Yu family set off to work, accompanying other merchants and pedestrians to rush to Yanggu County before dark. After a moment of hesitation, Wang Lin took advantage of no one's attention and picked up a long-handled chopping axe outside the restaurant, then followed closely. Because this place is a crucial hub for commuting between Qinghe County and Yanggu County, merchants and pedestrians on the hill have walked for many years and have already stepped on a wide and flat road. Wang Lin fell behind the Zhang family in the crowd. Up the hill, he suddenly saw a dense forest more than 100 meters ahead where plants and trees were falling. Wang Lin's heart was filled with warning signs, and his secret path was not good. He could no longer focus on hiding his tracks and jumped out and shouted, "Turn around and come down the mountain, run." Everyone was shocked and turned their heads, staring at the blue-clad young man dressed as a scholar carrying an axe like a fool. "Ow! The resounding roar of a tiger came from afar, shaking the mountains and forests. Dozens of birds leaped up from the forest and scattered in mid-air, while many small animals in the forest ran wild and wild. Wang Lin's heart sank as he saw 2 or 3 gray rabbits passing by him. Damn it, isn't this oversized boss reserved for the hero Wu Dalang? Thief, why did you release this fierce beast in advance? Isn't this taking human life? The roar of the tiger scared everyone to the bone, causing them to sweat profusely. The first person to come to their senses quickly turned around and ran down the mountain along the way they came from. The slower one to come to their senses was actually only half a beat slower. Jinlian supported Yu's sedan chair and fled with the crowd, only to accidentally catch a glimpse of Wang Lin standing on the front road with a long axe. Without thinking about why he was here, he panicked and exclaimed, "Lin Lang, there's a big bug, run. Please collect." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Fighting Tiger Roars in the Mountain Forest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Fighting Tiger Roars in the Mountain Forest. A strong and foul smell filled the air, and a colorful white-haired tiger with over 2 meters in length emitted a fierce light from its eyes, slowly revealing its head from the dense forest. It even recklessly lifted its hind legs and splashed urine on a tree. Wang Lin took a deep breath and decisively dispelled the idea of turning around to escape. It is common sense not to act recklessly when facing fierce beasts. If he moves, it will only cause even more frenzied pursuit. Even if he flies on 2 legs, he will definitely not be able to run the fierce beast king with 4 legs and a speed of over 70 km per hour. At that time, not only will he be unable to escape, but also the group of pedestrians including Jinlian will be unable to survive. This fierce white-haired tiger stepped forward with its 4 hooves, took more than 10 steps forward, and let out a dull low roar. Wang Lin stood tall with a stiff scalp, staring at it. But he didn't believe it. Even if he killed it, it would make the tiger retreat. Hanging eyes, white-fronted tiger. Health 7, Intelligence 0, Force 51, Reputation 0, Skill. Tiger roar. My dear mother. Wang Lin's face turned white and his legs became soft. This can be considered as completely shattering his last bit of luck, with a difference of 10 times in strength and a complete one-sided crushing. He struggled to maintain his composure, but the idea of fleeing arose in his heart. Wang Lin adjusted his breathing and stepped back step by step. The white-haired tiger remained motionless, but its hanging eyes suddenly lifted up. Suddenly, the white-haired tiger roared towards the sky with its back up, and with a sudden press of its 4 hooves on the ground, its huge body leaped into the air, enveloped in the foul smell of the wind. This leap was over 10 meters long. In a moment of panic, Wang Lin had to jump to the side of the mountain path to dodge, holding his long axe even tighter. Although he knew that resistance was futile, he could not sit still and wait for death. Therefore, before the white-fronted tiger had fallen into mid-air, he gritted his teeth and swung his axe vigorously to chop at the big bug. In a state of panic and confusion, this axe made a moderate cut on the waist of the white-fronted tiger, bleeding profusely and being shaken open by a tremendous force. The big bug let out a fierce roar of anger as if it was a bolt from the blue in mid-air. As soon as it landed on the ground, it put its front hooves on the ground, lifted its tiger buttocks around its waist, and swept its iron rod-like long tail, flying sand and stones. Wang Lin's eyes were also red with anxiety, ignoring the valley that was about 10 meters deep next to him, and he jumped down. Wang Lin desperately grabbed the long axe and rolled down the mountain slope. The giant insect's ferocity grew even stronger. With just a disdainful glance at the top of the slope and a slight pause, it rushed down, crushing dead trees and shrubs to the ground in an instant wherever it went. Wang Lin fell 7 dizzy and 8 vegetarian, lying in a disheveled state in the grass, facing up to the sky and panting heavily. At this moment, his whole body was tingling and powerless, and there was no time to escape. He could only watch as the long tail of the big bug swept past like a withered and decaying creature, then rushed towards him with its 4 hooves in the air, its bloodthirsty mouth wide open, its fangs dense, and its iron claws glaring. Is he about to die now? The past and present life scenes flashed before his eyes like lightning, and he remembered that he was going to let a beast slaughter him. Various sorrows, grievances, and unwillingness erupted in his heart. Wang Lin angrily cursed and simply held the long axe in his arms, with the axe facing upwards, ready to fight hard. The white-haired tiger pounced past, and when it reached Wang Lin's head, he could clearly see its pale and soft belly. However, in this moment of life and death, Wang Lin did not do anything foolish. If he believes in the story of Tang Dahu in the primary school Chinese textbook, he will be foolish enough to die at home. He still chooses to believe his crisis judgment, and rolls to the right to avoid the attack. When the big bug lands in the air, he has no time to adjust his posture. His long-stored strength bursts out, he jumps up, waves a sharp axe, silently recites Kwai and butcher's knife, and desperately cuts the nose of the big bug. It is said that the weakest part of a tiger's body is its nose and back. At this moment, Wang Lin didn't know whether the information on the internet was true or false, but he had to give it a try. The sharp axe, equipped with speed and skill, lightning landed on the seemingly soft nose of the white-fronted tiger. It slashed it with a burst of blood, causing the big bug to shake its head in pain and howl in anger. The long tail suddenly stood upright behind it, pulling it diagonally with a snap. Wang Lin dodged desperately and was almost caught in the waist by the tiger tail tip. In an instant, he knew he couldn't escape any longer. With the power and speed of this big bug, unless he could reach heaven and earth, he would definitely be killed by it. Since TMD will always be a dead person, I'm afraid of being a damn hammer, so I decided to fight with this beast to make a deal. If a person were to be put to death and be reborn, it would definitely stimulate all their potential for life. Wang Lin didn't know how crazy he was when he jumped forward and jumped onto the back of the big insect. He grabbed the soft hair behind its neck tightly with one hand and didn't let go. In addition, the sharp axe in his hand quickly chopped down several times, 7, 2, or 11. The mournful roar of the big insect pierced through the mountains and forests of Jinggang Ridge, and the blood-red sunset slowly fell. Wang Lin almost became an unrecognizable blood man, his mind numb, he had no idea how many axes he had chopped, and he couldn't remember how the big insect struggled, counterattacked, and leaped fiercely just now. Anyway, he had been riding on its back, crazily chopping the tiger's head into a bloody mess. The big bug finally died through. Wang Lin collapsed in a pool of blood, unable to get up for quite some time. After a moment, he disregarded dirt and disgust, reluctantly propped himself up and leaned onto the corpse of the big bug, sucking on the foul-smelling tiger blood. Because he had just had tiger blood splattered from his mouth, he unexpectedly noticed that tiger blood could increase strength and recover injuries, and it was estimated that it could also increase health. For a long time. The night fell completely, and the cold mountain wind brushed through the dense forests of the hills. Wang Lin's blood boiled inside, surging in his meridians like fire, and soon bursts of endless power were born. Wang Lin. Health 5.2, Intelligence 11, Force 35, Reputation 3, Skill. Tiger Roar. The force value suddenly increased to 35, a 7-fold increase. Wang Lin took a deep breath and fought hard to turn over a fierce tiger, with at least 70.8% of the lucky and accidental factors. Although the harvest is huge, I still feel lingering fear when I think about it. He was calculating in his heart that Wu Song, who could hold down the fierce tiger and pound fiercely on the ground, must have a higher level of military strength than the fierce tiger. Judging from Wu Song's position on the Liangshan Hero Power ranking, although his current military strength is still far from that of Wu Song and the more advanced people such as Lu Junyi, Guan Sheng, and Lin Chong, at least it should not be much worse than some ordinary leaders, right? At this point, he can be considered to have truly gained the power of self-protection in this turbulent era. If given enough time to grow, he will eventually surpass the 108 heroes of Liangshan, and even one day in the future, invincibility in the world is not a dream. Of course, the prerequisite is not to die prematurely halfway. The only pity is that he has not yet met the real Jianghu heroes. The skills he copied are more like some primitive instinct in strict sense, such as the roaring of the white-fronted tiger, the butcher's knife of Sun Hu and the Kuai of Bai'er, which are far from enough. But it's not urgent, after all, the days ahead are long. In an era of darkness and darkness, power represents everything. Thinking of this, Wang Lin half knelt on the ground, suppressing nausea and burying his head to continue pouring tiger blood. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Tiger Fighting Hero Wang Lin. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Tiger Fighting Hero Wang Lin. The moon is bright and the stars are sparse, and the clear wind passes by the post. More and more merchants and pedestrians gathered at the foot of Jinggang Hill, and the Yu family was also among them. They heard that a fierce bug suddenly appeared on the hill, and no one dared to cross the post recklessly, so they could only gather here temporarily. A good person had already reported to the Qinghe County government, and Du Tu Zhou Ping led more than 10 constables to come here. The crowd is moving and the voices are boiling. Pan Jinlian propped up Yu's sedan chair and collapsed on the ground, her pretty face filled with fear and despair, and tears. Suddenly, she heard the crowd shouting one after another in shock, and then saw people around her scattered and running away in panic. Even the Yu family got off the sedan chair and ran away. She then looked up in silence under the bright moonlight. A thin and blood-stained figure walked rapidly, getting closer and closer. He walked off the job carrying a colorful tiger on his shoulder. It seems like Lin Lang Xiaonyang's caution is dirty and she accelerates to jump. Everyone was horrified at the sight, and slowly realized it was a dead tiger, which allowed them to avoid the onlookers from afar. Zhou Ping led the county constables to stop in front of everyone, their eyes shaking. Fighting fierce tigers in the mountains and capturing dragons in the sea are all romantic imaginations of literati and literati. Since the Qin and Han dynasties, there have been only a few records of unarmed tiger killers in history, and none of them have been earth-shattering divine beings. In front of everyone's eyes, a delicate little girl cried hysterically, waving her hands and running towards her, 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow, desperately. Wang Lin smiled slightly, shook his shoulder casually, and then shook the colorful tiger to the ground with a loud roar, causing smoke and dust to rise. Putting aside the value of force, he has undergone a complete transformation with his pure qi, blood, and brute force. This is when he drank a stomach full of tiger blood equivalent to natural resources and treasures. The system father quietly gave him additional benefits, which is somewhat like the depiction of shedding hair and washing marrow in martial arts novels. It belongs to the accidental or one-time adventure style of rebirth after bathing in blood, and is not within the rules of the system itself. As for whether there will be such additional benefits in the future, no one can say for sure. Wang Lin casually touched the bloodstain on his face and opened his arms to the little girl. He actually appeared more bloody and terrifying in this way. But the little girl also disregarded her fear, like a swallow jumping into the forest and rushing into his embrace, crying into tears. Under the moon, at this moment, Wang Lin's heart was incredibly peaceful. He knew that he and his mother had completely overcome the difficulties. With his current strength, there is no longer any problem protecting his woman, and that dog Tycoon. A hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes, and he bent down to pick up the little girl in his arms. Lin Lang. Wang Lin held his mother's waist and buttocks with one hand, while she had to blush and slightly close her eyes. She wrapped her hands around his neck and crouched on his chest to avoid the scrutiny of others. And with his other hand, he forcefully pulled the colorful tiger's tail, and the two of them walked step by step towards the crowd, one tiger at a time. Truly like a heavenly god. Yu Shi hid among the guards of the servants and maids, her gaze fixed, her legs weak, and she hadn't regained consciousness for a long time. Zhou Ping calmed down and greeted him, clasping his fists, saying, at the head of the Qinghe County government office, Zhou Ping, I dare to ask the little hero's high name and big name. Where is your hometown? This big bug with hanging eyes and white forehead is. Wang Lin, a native of this county, has seen Zhou Dudu. He just bumped into this big bug on duty and had to sacrifice his life to kill it. Wang Lin nodded to Zhou Ping as a gesture of goodwill. At this moment, he did not know that it was the person in front of him who helped him escape from prison. Although he casually said, just kill it, it caused a thunderous exclamation from the surrounding crowd. Zhou Ping was startled and looked up and down at Wang Lin. After a long time, his eyes showed a strange light and he said, the day before yesterday, Chao, a high-ranking official from Qinghe County, entrusted someone to deliver a message to Zhou, saying that he had a nephew named Wang Lin. Could it be the little hero in front of him? Originally, it was Zhou Dudu who helped me get rid of my unjust imprisonment. I will remember my great kindness in my heart, and Rong Shaoxing will come to my door tomorrow to express his gratitude. The constables in Zhouping and County used soft sedans to carry Wang Lin and the happy little girl Pan Jinlian, who had almost fainted. They also pulled the colorful white-eyed bug in their cars, beating gongs and drums all the way back to the city, causing a sensation throughout the county. Although it was night, the streets and alleys of the county were full of people who were awakened to watch the excitement. They were all bustling and came to welcome the insects and the heroes who killed them, making it more lively than the Chinese New Year. Song's supervisor of the county gets up in a panic from his concubine Jin's bed and leads people to meet him at the gate of the county government office. It was said that the tiger-fighting hero was Wang Lin, a poor scholar who had just been released from prison. He didn't believe it, but the truth was in front of his eyes. In particular, he saw the thin young scholar downplay the fact that he was carrying the bloody worm and proudly went home. The supervisor of the county master held his beard and gasped several times. After thinking for a moment, he lowered his head and ordered people to report this matter to Dongping Prefecture for credit. Then he instructed Master Qiangu Huzhen to quickly give Wang Lin a plaque in the name of the county government to recognize him as a tiger fighter hero, and also instructed him to gather 1,000 guan of money from several wealthy households in the county to send to the Wang family. The little hero of the tiger fighter eradicates violence and brings good to one side. Of course, the gratitude money comes from the wealthy people in the county, who are very poor. Huzhen responded in panic. He was the mastermind behind the previous framing of Wang Lin. When people saw the impoverished young scholar suddenly transform into a brave hero fighting against tigers, he was both shocked and afraid. The name of the tiger-fighting hero Wang Lin spread overnight in Qinghe County and its surrounding areas, and of course, various versions were immediately released. Some people enthusiastically say that Wang Lin descended from the Wutsu star in the sky, while others say he is the reincarnation of the Western Chu hegemon. In short, the more it spread, the more mysterious it became. As for his original identity as a poor scholar, it was automatically ignored by people. The changing world and human emotions are nothing more than this. The little girl never returned to the Zhang family again. That night, Wang Lin skillfully skinned and cramped the big bug, and the butcher's knife skill was truly useful. Tiger skin was prepared to be given to Zhou Ping as a gift tomorrow. As for tiger meat, which is a rare ingredient that can increase life and blood, it should be kept for personal use. After finishing, I couldn't sleep soundly until the next day, when the sun rises 3 poles. He had not yet stood up, and the red plaque sent by the county government was hanging on the lintel. Excited neighbors also set off some firecrackers on their own. Hu Zhen, the magistrate of Qinghe County, personally delivered 1,000 guan worth of money to their doorstep and placed it in a box in the courtyard. The maid of the Zhang family, Chui, also brought Pan Jinlian's personal belongings and other items, as well as 500 taels of silver and a box of silk and satin gifted by the Yu family. The key is also Pan Jinlian's sales contract. Yu sent a signal, hoping that the feud between the two families would be resolved. This is of course her wishful thinking. Wang Lin stretched lazily on the bed, feeling refreshed. He slowly opened his eyes, and the little girl changed into a clean dress, sitting by the bed with her hands resting on her cheeks, staring at him in a daze. This night's events seemed like a dream for Nank, and even now she is still in a dream. Wang Lin reached out and pulled the little girl into his arms. Lin Lang, this big day. So let's wait until tonight. Lin Lang, you have died. Unconsciously, it was already afternoon. The little girl's spring mood was hazy and her hair was scattered. She reached out her delicate jade hands and pulled the curtain open. Lin Lang, it's time to get up. In the morning, the neighbors and Brother Wu next door all said they wanted to raise money to treat you to a drink to celebrate the reputation of this tiger-fighting hero. Without Lin Lang's consent, I cut some of the cooked tiger meat and gave them a try. Wang Lin didn't mind and smiled, it's okay to give some as gifts. There are plenty left and right, and we can't finish it ourselves. This fierce tiger weighs at least 400 to 500 pounds, and after removing its skin and internal organs, there are also 200 to 300 pounds of meat. It's okay to give some to neighbors to eat, and besides, Wuda has long wanted to thank him. Wang Lin stood up and tidied up under the care of his mother. He changed into a brand new blue shirt and looked like a handsome gentleman with red lips, white teeth, and a jade tree in the wind. But the handsome gentleman who can still fight tigers in the mountains, a rare hero in the world, is now the husband of a slave. The little girl looked at Wang Lin's face blushing slightly and was satisfied for a moment. Upon hearing Wang Lin's visit, Zhou Ping immediately welcomed him out with a smile on his face. Seeing Wang Lin holding a rolled-up and colorful tiger skin in his right hand, as light as nothing, and a box filled with gifts in his other hand, he couldn't help but praise the good strength of the little brother, worthy of being a hero in fighting tigers. Wang Lin clenched his fists and smiled, "Today, I come to the door to express my gratitude to the leader for his rescue." The expenses of the top and bottom officials were all spent by Chow, and Zhou was only slightly modest. How dare he accept such a generous gift? The favor of dripping water should be repaid by the gushing spring. This tiger skin is not worth anything. If you refuse to accept it, then transfer it to Chow. A high-ranking official for me. After Wang Lin finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the nearby apricot blossom tower. If readers feel that it's still acceptable, please help Lao Yu promote it. After all, we haven't signed a contract yet, in the process, and at this time, investing is equivalent to picking up starting coins for nothing. Don't pick up coins for nothing. Brothers, please help Lao Yu promote it and consider it as picking up money. Thank you, please collect and follow up. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Summoning the Girl Pang Chunmei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Summoning the Girl Pang Chunmei. Xinhua Tower is the largest restaurant in Qinghe County, owned by Yao Sanyuan, one of Wang Lin's neighbors. He is also the initiator of today's tiger fighting hero feast. More than 10 people, including Wuda, who sells pancakes, Zhang Neng, who runs a paper horse shop, Shuepe, who specializes in matchmaking and fiber drawing through the streets and alleys, and Hu Si, the owner of a carriage and horse shop, also gathered the money to attend. They are all neighbors living on the same street. Although there was not much interaction originally, it did not prevent everyone from warmly supporting tonight. Wang Lin saluted the neighbors one by one, with a humble and gentle attitude. He never had any ferocious aura on his body. If it weren't for witnessing him return with his own eyes carrying a colorful bug, no one would have believed that the young man in front of him was a powerful and invincible hero. When he arrived at Wuhan University, Wang Lin bowed down and said, "Wang Lin has seen Brother Wu. Thanks to Brother Wu's bravery, he helped me deliver a letter to Qinghe County, which allowed me to escape from unjust imprisonment." Wuda smiled and quickly avoided, "Brother Lin, no, I can't afford such a generous gift from you. I didn't do anything, just run errands. Brother Wu, I will keep this kindness in mind and repay it later. Wang Lin saluted again. Yao Sanyuan interjected with a smile and said, we are all neighbors in the neighborhood. It's normal for us to help each other. Everyone, the tiger fighter hero is right in front of us. Today's banquet is even Yao's, everyone can eat and drink to their heart's content. We won't go back until we're drunk. Zhonghe also clenched his fists and smiled, that's exactly what happened. Who would have thought that Qinghe County would produce a earth-shattering hero like Wang Lin, and our neighbors are so proud. Hu Si raised his glass and invited him to drink. I never expected to have tiger meat in my whole life. I would wake up with a smile in my dreams. Hi neighbors, come here, let's toast the hero of the tiger fight. Shui Pe, who was in her 40s, also joined in the fun and said, I'm not very good at drinking, but I can act as a matchmaker. In the future, the life of a tiger fighting hero will be wrapped up in my mother. Everyone laughed and said yes, and Wang Lin smiled back and said, thank you very much, Grandma Shui. However, Wang Lin already has a golden lotus by his side, so I won't trouble you. Shui Pe's head shook and she said, where is that? A good man with a head and face, who is not a 3-wife and 4 concubines. Even Hu Si has married a 3-bedroom concubine, let alone you, a tiger fighting hero with both civil and military skills, and the most handsome young man in the county. That's right, that's right. What's the point of Wang Lin marrying a few beautiful wives and concubines? Yao Sanyuan held up his wine cup and said, if it weren't for the emergence of the tiger fighting hero, this big bug wouldn't have killed many villagers. Dear neighbors, let's have another cup of wine to pay tribute to the young man. Everyone came forward to toast, but Wang Lin couldn't resist and had to raise his glass to meet. After drinking too much and patrolling, Yao Sanyuan and others were already drunk from eating, and their flattery was even more baseless. It was difficult to show off their affection, so Wang Lin had to grit his teeth and compromise. Shui Pe also ate a few cups of wine and leaned over to grab him, saying, Little Lang Jun, I have a beautiful little girl in my hand. She has a delicate and beautiful appearance. She is only 15 years old and was wandering in Qinghe County a few months ago. If little Lang Jun has any intentions, I will make the decision to give her to you. Wang Lin said, Shui Pe, I understand. I have a golden lotus in my family, so I won't do anything about it for now. Shui Pe chuckled and said, I know the fairy-like appearance of the golden lotus little lady, and I have a deep affection for her. It's normal for her to not tolerate other women in her eyes. However, with her current status, if there isn't even a servant girl at home, wouldn't she want to suffer? Wang Lin's mind twitched, and he felt the same way. My family really lacks a servant girl, otherwise many things would have to be done by Jinlian herself. He hadn't made up his mind yet, but he heard Shui Pe say again, this little girl's name is Pang Chunmei. She used to be a wealthy girl from Zhonghe, Hebei. She died at the age of 1 and her father at the age of 3. Come to Shandong to seek refuge with her relatives. Her aunt can't tolerate her. Pang Chunmei. Wang Lin suddenly looked up and glanced at Shui Pe, who was chattering incessantly, with a strange expression on his face. He thought to himself that perhaps he had made a scene, but how could a woman from the golden vase of the plum blossom appear again? Judging from his true background, it seems that his family and Shimen Qing have an unavoidable fate. First cut off Wu Da, then cut off Shimen. Who else will be intercepted later? He smiled lightly at the corner of his mouth and said to Shui Pe, how much silver is this little girl's estimated value? If it's suitable, I'll buy it to be a servant girl for Jinlian. Shui Pe saw that today's sales had finally yielded results in half a day. Upon hearing this, she was overjoyed and smiled, probing, saying, young master, you are such a talented person. I dare not ask for any more. 16 taels of silver is enough. In fact, the owner, also known as Pang Chunmei's uncle and aunt, only sells for 10 taels of silver. Only Shui Pe had a lot of ulterior motives. Today, I heard that the county government and some wealthy families in the county gave Wang Lin a lot of silver and property. The gifts in the Wang family courtyard were piled up in a mountain, which made me brave enough to increase the price by 6 taels. It's really black. She was prepared to bargain, but to her surprise, Wang Lin waved his hand casually and said, "That's settled. Later, Shuepo will bring someone in the sales contract to my house, and we will deliver face to face." Wang Lin didn't know the tricks behind it. Instead, he felt that for 16 taels of silver to buy one person, Nima was cheap enough. It was truly a wicked old society. Shuepa smiled happily, and her flattery became even more open. As a matchmaker, she relied on her open mouth to make a living, which was the ability to say that the living and the dead were alive. Regardless of whether the flesh was numb or appropriate, Wang Lin's scalp exploded and he quickly fled. Pan Jinlian heard that Lin Lang spent 16 taels of silver to buy a servant girl, which was already considered expensive. She only sold it to Zhang's wealthy family for 10 taels of silver back then, but when she saw 15-year-old Pang Chunmei standing in front of her, she felt it was worth it. This girl has apricot eyes and peach cheeks, a slender figure that resembles her. She has a low eyebrow and drooping eyes, and a well-behaved personality. Pan Jinlian circled around her and was very satisfied. She then picked up Pang Chunmei's hand to ask about the cold and warmth, as well as the long and short. Wang Lin didn't disturb the two women either, sneaking into the kitchen to eat. He is really a bit ashamed. He just returned from the table and was hungry again in less than half an hour. If this continues, he will definitely become a barrel of rice. A large plate of sauce-made tiger meat was swept away by him, and he felt that his body's qi and blood had become more vigorous. Only then did he leave the kitchen satisfied and stand in the courtyard, looking up at the moon, sorting out the chaotic and complex emotions. At the beginning, it was in prison, and soon after, on the Jinggang hill, I was fighting fiercely with a fast-paced pace. There were many things that I didn't have time to think deeply. Since time travel is irreversible, I really need to figure out how to take the future path. In Shandong, April nights are still a bit chilly. Pan Jinlian walked out of the room holding a cloak and put it on him, saying softly, "Lin Lang, go back to the room and don't catch the cold." Wang Lin laughed heartily and decided to put aside all the chaos in his heart. At this point in life, he should have fun at the right time. As for the future, he should judge the situation and take advantage of it, so there is no need to look forward or backward. So she turned around and picked up the little girl, kissing her smooth forehead again. The little girl was so embarrassed that she buried her head on his chest, allowing him to carry her into the bedroom. The red candle inside the house went out, and the waves surged, one wave after another without end. And the spring night seemed so long that it had just begun. The new and gentle little girl, Pang Chunmei, who had not yet been informed, couldn't eat or sleep next door, so she had to sneak out of the house with a red face and sneak into the firewood room. End of this chapter.